I'm May, and this is May's Crochets. Today, we're going to crochet the Woobles Pierre the Penguin together, which has a free pattern on the Woobles website. Most of what the Woobles is known for is their Learn to Crochet kits, which are basically these all-in-one kits that have everything you need to make a crochet plushie project. And I've made a whole bunch of them up until now. I have videos on my channel where I review a bunch of different Woobles, I show the finished object and kind of talk through the process of making it. But I recently discovered that the Woobles actually has two free patterns listed on their website. It's Kiki the Chick and Pierre the Penguin. Kiki the Chick is actually the first Woobles that I ever made using the full Learn to Crochet kit. But I never made Pierre the Penguin, and I don't have that one. So when I saw they had the free pattern, I got really excited to make it. And it's fun because I get to use my own yarns. I've been also kind of wanting to try making a chenille version, a bigger plushie version of one of the Woobles. So this seems like the perfect chance to use the Pierre the Penguin pattern and also use my chenille yarn and make a larger Woobles pattern that's a softer plushie version. So we're going to just do that today together. If you want to kind of follow along, you can get the Pierre the Penguin pattern from the Woobles website. So much alliteration there. And get your own materials, and we are going to do some crocheting together. So I'm going to show you first off all of the materials that I have. I actually printed out the pattern from the website. Usually I do patterns just like on my computer. I kind of follow along, but this time I actually have it printed out for easy reference. I'm going to use chenille yarn like I was saying. I'm going with Premier Basix Chenille Brights. I love this yarn. It's super soft. You are welcome to use whatever yarn you want. You want to use a corresponding crochet hook that goes along with that yarn. But I'm going to be using this Basix Chenille Brights. I've got the colors light blue, banana for the little beak, and then this is a white, and this is called winter white. This is for the belly. The regular sort of Woobles Pierre the Penguin version has a really bright turquoise for the penguin, and this yarn doesn't really come in a bright turquoise. They do have a couple options that are a little bit closer, but I actually like the idea of doing this light blue. It's kind of like ice blue. It's a little bit more penguiny. So I'm going to be using these yarns, and I am going to be using a 5mm crochet hook. This is a Clover and More hook. I love these. And so again, you are welcome to use any colors, any yarns, etc. that you want. They probably recommend worsted weight. On the pattern itself, the Woobles Easy Peasy yarn is their own sort of version of their worsted weight yarn, and it might be a little easier to work with. Chenille is notoriously tricky to work with, but I'm going to give it a shot. And then I also have sort of my regular, I have my stitch markers, which are these little metallic and stuck to my little magnet here. I've got my scissors and then my yarn needle. All of these are metallic. I also have my little thing here to use. I also have safety eyes. Here's a box of safety eyes. I'm not 100% sure what size safety eyes I'm going to use. So I have my whole box here, and then I do also have polyfill for the stuffing. And then I also have, last up, for keeping track of my stitches, I have my phone, and I actually have my own May's Crochets stitch and row counter. So I have that up. It's a sort of it's just a website that I have up here on mobile, and this will let me keep track of my rows and also stitches if I need to. So I will be using this as I go. So I think we're ready. Let's dive in. So starting off, we're going to be doing sort of the Woobles body. Many of the Woobles are very similar in this way. They are all kind of an egg shape. One of the nice things about the Woobles kits is they come with a pre-started piece if you don't want to learn to do the magic ring right off the bat. But here we are using our own materials. So I'm going to start with a magic ring and then do some rounds, increasing and single crochet, working my way up through the egg shape. So let's get started. Starting with my light blue. Okay. I do the magic ring in the way that the Woobles taught me, which I think is different than the way other people do it. I see a lot of other people wrapping around kind of two of their fingers, but this is how I do it. And I like to mark my first stitch with a stitch marker when I'm using chenille, just because it's really hard to see with chenille. So I'm gonna go with that. And then one of the nice things about this yarn is that it usually pulls okay for the magic ring. Yep, look at that. A lot of people complain that some chenille yarns, it does not pull really nicely. Sometimes it snaps. But that was not so bad. So there we go. I'm going to mark that was round 1. Okay, I'm a few rounds in now, kind of making my circle. I'm going to start working it up. Okay, 5 rounds in, and it does give some advice on making sure that you have it facing the right side out. So I'm going to make sure we do that, push it out this way. And we're going to keep on doing some increasing and single crochets. Okay, 9 rows in. It's definitely starting to get its little egg shape, little penguin, penguin head. So let's keep going. Got my 9 rows. I'm not using the stitch counter for this, but I'm counting in my head. Mostly successfully, but let's see what's next. More increasing and single crochets. And I dropped my crochet hook. Oh, there it is. Okay, we're up to 32 stitches around, and that's the biggest it's going to be. And now we're going to do a few rounds of just single crochet. So here we go. Okay, we're ready to start some decreasing. Okay, it's starting to go back in just a teensy bit. The Woobles has you do invisible decreases where you just go under the front loops of 2 stitches and crochet those 2 together. The trick that I have learned for myself is that I always need to kind of go into it always seems like a little further away than you might think for the stitch after the invisible decrease, because it's kind of pulling those 2 together. I kind of always have to look carefully, and I've definitely made the mistake before of going back into the second stitch that was part of the decrease as opposed to the following one. So I'm always kind of on the lookout for that when I'm doing invisible decreases. Okay, 15 rounds in. We're going to do another little bit of decreasing, and it's almost time to start stuffing. finished round 17. I made it through a page of the pattern. Okay, and we are now going to do safety eyes and stuffing. Okay, so I'm going to pick which safety eyes I think are good for this size yarn. So let's do a little bit of experimenting. Let me pull this out for the moment. These are 14 millimeter. I think these might be good. I know I'm not doing a good job showing this, but I don't want to poke it through quite yet. Let me also check 12 millimeter. Let's just poke it through and compare. I'm not doing this in the right spot, but what do we think? Let's look at a picture. Honestly, either one would be fine. I'll go with the 14. 14 millimeter. Okay, so let's pop this out and let's actually check where these are supposed to go. Okay, let's count down. Oops. Let's try that again. Oops. Okay, did I put that in the right spot? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good. Hi. Going over. Something like that. Just double check. Yep. 1, 2. Okay, and now we're going to put the backs on. It's tricky to see where the actual stitches are. Let me use my hook to actually. 1, 2, 4, 5. I think I'm one off. Whoopsie. Okay, that looks better. Hi. 6, 7. Yeah, okay. It's good to double check before you close it up. And my backs. I'll pop them on. Okay. There were like, I squeezed it on twice, like there were 2 like clicks. And I feel like sometimes I try to only do 1 because if you do too much, it kind of like flattens it a little bit and like pushes it down. I don't know. We'll see when we stuff it how it looks. Which I think is next up. Stuffing it, shaping it like an egg. So I'm just gonna stuff like little by little. Here's my polyfill. I'm just gonna break pieces apart and go in. It's always tricky to know how much to stuff. You could really stuff a lot or kind of a little and it would still kind of look okay. This is quite a good size penguin since I'm using this Plush Chenille chunky yarn. I'm going to go a little bit more. You can also sort of shape it like flat or like skinny. Like we want it to be sort of circular. Egg shape, they say. So we're going to do a little more. Okay, I think that's enough for now. I want to try to make sure it's kind of smooth and there's no lumps and bumps, which of course there are. Okay, something like that. What do we think? The lighting here for the colors is not showing it great. This is really a light blue, but it's coming through kind of much more white. But I swear this is blue. It's kind of a nice light blue. Okay. What is next? Oh, just one more round of decreasing, and then we are going to fasten off and close up the body. Great. Okay, 18 rounds done. Let's just double and triple check. Now we are going to fasten off and close the bottom. Okay, pulling it through, I can remove my stitch marker. And I think, do I want to stuff it just a teensy bit more at the bottom? Maybe just a little bit to complete the egg. Here's my tapestry needle. And I'm going to go through the front loops of each stitch and pull tight to fill in that hole. Okay, pretty good. And now to hide my tail, I'm just gonna stick the needle through and catch it in the stuffing and do that a couple times. That's how the Woobles recommends. I've seen different people do different things, but this is easy and I hope is secure. So I'm going with the Woobles way. Okay, so I can kind of make sure that it disappears back into the shape. I'm gonna do it a couple more times, which is probably unnecessary, but seems extra secure. So, okay. Done with my needle. I'm gonna cut it close. A little bit of an extra fuzzy, and then we just sort of massage it, and it all disappears. Okay, how's our egg? Our penguin egg. There's the eyes. Okay, so there's our body. Yay! Okay, what is next? Next, we're going to do the belly with the white yarn, which is just a few rounds, starting with a magic loop. I'm using this winter white color. It's like a teensy bit off-white. I think bright regular white would be fine too, but I decided to go with this one. So starting again with a magic ring. And let me get a stitch marker. Okay, let's pull. There we go. Love this yarn. So there's our magic ring. Now we'll do some crocheting into it. Okay, I think there we go. We've got 4 rounds, and it's gonna go something like this. So it says to, let's see, fasten off and attach the belly to the body. So they say to make sure to leave like at least 3 times the amount that you're going to be having to sew around. So we're going to sort of make up some version of that. Better too much than too little. You can always cut more at the end. I'm gonna do the invisible fasten off. So let me get my tapestry needle. I did make a little knot at the end. Well, I'm gonna cut that off. Whoops. Okay. Remove my stitch marker, go through the second stitch from the end and then go back through the back loop of where that came out of, which kind of closes it into a nice little circle where you kind of have a pretend V at the bottom, even though you didn't make one. This like fixes sort of the jog between the two when you do end there. So let's see where to attach this. It just says between rounds 9 and 10. It doesn't exactly specify like where to be spanning all the way down. So I guess that's just where we start. So we'll give it a shot. Making sure to keep the extra on the inside. We can compare where the eyes were to make sure we're in a good spot. That, okay, I'm gonna start at the top, I think, because that's the part that kind of matters the most. Just want to double check like where the beak is gonna go, because we don't want this to be too high, the belly. This is hard to do on the screen. I'm really sorry. I'm gonna do the best I can. Using kind of two hands for this. Okay, I think that's done. I feel like it came out okay. You know, it's hard to make it perfectly symmetrical. I do recommend using pins sometimes to try to actually place it before you do the sewing, but I didn't do that today. So yeah, I think it came out like decently. It's a little, you know, it's always a little bit not perfectly symmetrical with a circle like this, but I think it looks pretty good. We're gonna stick with it, and I'm gonna hide the remaining yarn tail. Look, I think I did way more yarn than I needed to, which is fine. Better too much than too little. Okay, I'm done with the white yarn now, and I suppose we're also done with the blue yarn. Done with my safety eyes, and what's next? Okay, next up is the beak, which we're going to use yellow yarn for, and it's just 2 rounds, and then we're going to sew it on. So here's my banana. I also considered a kind of a brighter yellow color, but I think this will go nicely with kind of the light colors. And this is always the fun part, starting a new ball of yarn. Where is the end? I'm probably just gonna need to take this whole thing apart. It's like either you get it or you have to deconstruct the entire ball. Oh, there's an end. Okay, we're just gonna go with that. It's better to pull from the middle, but we're not gonna be using all that much of this yarn, so better to not have to tear this whole thing apart. So let me get my crochet hook, and we're starting again with a magic ring. Okay, our magic ring moment of truth. There we go. Okay. So there's our magic ring, round 1. And only one more round to go. And I think that's it. It's like really not a lot here. Crocheting back into that magic ring round is always tricky, and sometimes it takes a few rounds to like kind of even itself out. So, oh well, we'll see what we do with this one. Okay, we're gonna fasten off. Okay, something like that. That was really tricky. I don't know why. Something about the fact that this is only 2 rounds and getting it to face the right way out was a little bit tricky. But I think it's just going to be kind of like this, and we kind of flatten it so it's a little bit more of like a beak, like a little triangle instead of a circle. So now we're going to attach it somewhere around there. Look at that. Oh my gosh, so cute. Oh, it's so fun how the little pieces bring them all together. So let's see where to attach it. So we're going to go pretty much between the eyes and just a little bit down right above the belly. And I'm not going to hide this piece, this extra end. I'm going to just, or I'm not going to hide it like under. Actually, maybe I can. It's not that big. I could also cut it. I was thinking I'll just, yeah, I think I'm just going to let it loose and I'm going to just hide it inside the body when I'm done. I think that's fine. I'm going to flatten it so that the edge has where the yarn tail is coming out of. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. We'll hide the tails in. I don't know if I really ended up, I did kind of go around it in a circle and it's like a little bit flattened like a triangle thing. I had trouble kind of going through the bottom stitches because of the way I don't know, something about the original kind of 2 rounds and getting it right side out and doing my invisible fasten off got a little bit off, but you know, it's good enough. And the chenille yarn also helps because it's really fluffy and it kind of helps fluff out hiding many imperfections and things like that. So I could see you could either make the beak like way more like triangular or circular. I think there's different ways and they all probably look fine. So there we go. Let's hide the yarn tails. Okay, pulling those yarn tails through, sometimes it can kind of mess up the shaping of the stuffing, so I'm gonna just do a little bit of refluffing. You know, my other little trick that I'm sure there's better ways to do this, but sometimes I use my tapestry needle and just sort of stick it in a little, which gets a little bit of leverage to kind of push pieces of the stuffing kind of out more towards the edge. If there are places that I kind of pushed it in, I'm sure I could also use something like longer and thinner for a bigger piece like this. I could probably use my crochet hook even, but this is doing the trick. Okay, how are we looking? Here we go. Ah, Penguin, Pierre, hi. I think all that's left is the wings, which are also going to be yellow, my banana color. And let's see how to make them. Oh, right, not banana. It's going to be blue. They're going to be blue. They're part of the body. Okay, so we are bringing the blue back. I was wrong what I said before. We're done with the yellow. That was literally just for the beak, and we bring back the blue. We're going to make 2 of them. And then we will sew them on. And then I believe we are done. The wings are only 3 rounds each. So let's get started with a magic ring. Okay, took me a second to read that. So it wants you after the 3 rounds to fasten off, and then we're going to end up actually attaching the 2 ends. We're going to flatten it like a pancake, and we're going to single crochet the edges of each side together. So I was debating about, should I just do that now while it's on the yarn? But I guess I'm just going to follow what it says. It probably doesn't super matter one way or the other, but let's just be sure to leave enough yarn to do everything that we need to do with it. I'm going to make my second wing just like this, and then we're going to do the kind of flattening of each of them at the same time. So I'm going to set this aside for the moment, but it's going to end up looking something like, yee, little wing. Okay, there we go. There's our second one. Important to get it turned the right way out. And my other sort of thing that I tell myself, similar to the invisible decrease, is that as you turn it the right side out with these smaller little rounds, a lot of times, again, it feels like the stitch that you're going into next is like a little bit further away because of the way that sort of works when you end up like turning it back inside out, I guess. It just pulls the next stitch like further away than it would otherwise be if it's just like a regular circle with a whole lot of stitches in a round. So that's always a reminder for myself about like where the next stitch that I'm going into is. So I'm going to cut this one too, and then we're going to flatten them and close each of them. Okay, I'm going to take my stitch marker out, and then it says to slip stitch and chain 1, and then single crochet the ends together. I'm going to put my leftover yarn tail into my little wing, and I'm going to single crochet these ends together. So I'm going to kind of try to flatten it and go through like that. Do that a couple more times. Make sure I'm going through both stitches of both ends of it. Okay. Okay, and one more. The last one's always the trickiest. Where are my stitches? Okay. Did I leave enough yarn tail? Hopefully for attaching it. And if not, we'll have to just add some more. Okay, I'm gonna pull this through. So there's one wing. Let me do that again on the other side. Again, it's gonna end up looking kind of like this, so cute. Okay, great. So we've got 2 wings. They're gonna go on each side. And let's see where to sew them. And since they're attached, the 2 edges are attached, I think I only need to go through each stitch on the wing once, as opposed to kind of going all the way around the way that you might with another circular piece like I did with the beak. And you know, I'm gonna actually do 1 stitch of this side, and then I'm gonna jump to the other side and do 1 stitch just to make sure they're evenly kind of spaced and they both are the same distance away from the eyes before I commit to doing the rest of each side. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to finish this one side and then we can examine the other one in more detail. Okay, I'm gonna leave that for the time being. I went once across. I could technically maybe keep going back across just to secure it a little further, which I might do. I do have some extra yarn, although not a ton. The main thing I was looking at is sort of the placement or the distance from the eye, which can be easy to get off, but I think that looks pretty good. And let's just make sure the other side is the same. I feel like I want to go back and get this edge a little further, like down all the way to the front. So it's like more of a triangle all the way with each side sewn down. So probably go back over that in a second, but let's go to the other side. Okay, how are we looking? Okay, I feel pretty good about the symmetry. I feel like, I don't know, I could get up maybe a teensy bit closer to the eyes, but I'm gonna go back and try to just get the edges kind of cleaned up a little bit and do some more securing around the wings. Okay, I made it back to the front and I'm going to try to pull this out a little bit more closer to the eye and sort of flat. I think when I first started sewing on pieces, I didn't realize that you can kind of go like a little bit further away. You don't have to go right under where the piece is. If you go a little bit further away, it'll like pull that piece over. So that's sort of a good little reminder to myself that that's a possibility. So if I kind of want to pull this wing just a little bit back towards the front, which is what I'm trying to do, I can go like even more over from there. And when I go back up, you know, it'll sort of pull it that way. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Perfect. Okay. I'm gonna do one more stitch just to secure everything. I'm improvising a little bit. The Woobles really just shows they, you know, you do kind of one time across them, and that's that. Okay, so I think I'm done with that side. I'm gonna not hide my tail until the very end, until I'm totally positive. Let's jump back to this side and secure it a little more. Make sure it's symmetrical. Okay. Okay, I made it back to the front of this one, and here's the part that I really want to get down. It's kind of a little bit loose and not all the way to the edge here. So I'm going to pull this one back forward also. So I'm pulling out kind of all the way closer to that eye, and then going back up the very, very edge of the wing, if that's possible. Okay, I think that's pretty good. We'll just do one more stitch and I'm going to close it up. I am getting just a little bit of shedding with this yarn, but overall this Basix Chenille Brights yarn does not shed very much in comparison to some other Chenille yarns from what I've been told and experienced just a little bit. So love, love, love this yarn. Okay, I'm gonna hide my remaining yarn tails. I'm just going to do my last little trick to try to get some of the stuffing back sort of in its good spot. And here he is, Pierre the Penguin. Look at him. He really came together. I love it with that little yellow beak and his wings. Let me just show him up close. Again, the lighting, it's unfortunate because this is actually a nice light blue. But yeah, here he is. Let me show you all sides. Here's the bottom. Here's the top. I have to say, I'm pretty happy with him and how he came out. So, kind of some final thoughts. Yeah, this is my very first Wooble being made with non-Woobles yarn, with not the full Wooble kit. It was fun to have my own materials and really fun to make this plush version. It's really soft. Again, I love this Chenille Basix Premier yarn. I know a lot of other people like Premier Parfait Chunky. There's all kinds of other Chenille and other yarns out there. You can use any kind of yarn that you want. This Pierre the Penguin came out quite large in comparison to how it would come out if you use just a worsted weight yarn or the Woobles Easy Peasy yarn. I'm sure there's also a way to modify the pattern and do chenille yarn and just do fewer stitches and fewer rounds and all of that to make a smaller version, you know, you still using this plush yarn. But it's kind of fun to end up with kind of a bigger, slightly bigger plushie here. And yeah, I feel pretty pleased with this, and I feel like this is a relatively easy pattern overall, all things considered. But there definitely are some little tricky bits. And you know, the sewing on of pieces and getting them symmetrical and all of that. But this is a really great beginner pattern. So definitely encourage people to give it a shot if you're up for it. And also, if you don't feel like assembling all the materials yourselves, you can just get the Woobles full Pierre the Penguin kit, which has everything that you need to make it, including the crochet hook and all the safety eyes and stuffing and everything. This is not sponsored in any way, but I've had a great experience experience with the Woobles. I've worked my way through a whole bunch of the Woobles Learn to Crochet kits. I have a whole bunch of videos on my channel, so take a look at those if you're interested in seeing more Woobles that I've made. This was my very first sort of crochet along with me type video, so do let me know in the comments if this is something you like and want to see more of, or if I should just like stick with my usual and not do things like this. So definitely let me know your thoughts, and if you do try out the Pierre the Penguin pattern, if you have questions about crochet, I myself am certainly a beginner crocheter. But now that I've kind of worked my way through the pattern, and I've also done a whole lot of other Woobles, so definitely let me know if you have any questions and if you have any thoughts or anything else in the comments below. So I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for keeping me company, and I'll see you next time. Bye.